Hi, how are you? You can do better than that. It's raining. You made it. That's right. Thank you. That's right. Good afternoon, Miami.
Yes, we love having April Ryan here. She is, first of all, just phenomenal. Can we just get a hand clap for April Ryan? First of all, it's been raining, but you look fabulous.
Oh, thank you. I ran down the street. I was like, I didn't care about the hay. I didn't care about anything.
Yeah.
I said, I got to get here.
And I know you've been so busy with the book tour. Did you just land in from Chicago? Is that where you were?
I was in Chicago, went back to Baltimore for a few hours, then got on the plane, 3:45 in the morning, came here.
You're a busy woman.
And then I have to go, I'm not supposed to tell, well, I have got to go to Philadelphia. I can't tell why.
Okay.
Because the person, I don't want to spoil the surprise. I got to surprise a friend, so yeah.
You want to tease us with you're going to have to find out on the gram, on social media, on Twitter.
Well, what I will say is, she won a major award this year, and she's being heralded Black woman. I can't say anymore.
Okay.
Because I'm supposed to be a surprise. Her husband's making me a surprise.
Leave us on our seats.
Yeah, you'll see it. You'll see it Monday night.
Okay, perfect. On the edge of our seats there. Everybody mark down your calendar. April, first I want to say what a pleasure it is to sit down and talk with you about this book.
Yes.
In between your very hectic, very busy, very storied career, you've managed to now wow us again with another great book. And I know Black Women Will Save the World, an anthem. One thing, I want to jump right into it, and it was something, I was reading a few interviews leading up to coming here and sitting down and talk with you, and one thing that stuck out to me was when you said how this book is your love story to Black women.
Yeah, it's my love letter to Black women. It's my love letter actually to the world about the strength, the wonder of Black women. And I can only write about Black women because that's how I show up. And I see us overcome in spite of. I see us move through in spite of. I see us rise in spite of. And we, as a community, as a Black community, we welcome everyone. We celebrate everyone, but we don't celebrate ourselves. And this moment is not a moment to say anything against any other community. It's just to stop and pause and take a beat, as my kids say. Take a beat and celebrate Black women in this moment when we're rising to the top. Yeah.
What was your favorite part? And I don't even want to use the word favorite. I want to use what was your most memorable part about writing this book? Because I know that this obviously is not your first novel.
No, it's not a novel.
Your first.
This is the fourth book.
Fourth book, yeah.
Fourth book that I've written, and everything is true.
Yeah.
I've lived it. Some of it, unfortunately, I've lived it. But all of it was. I've never taken, many of the authors here have taken a sabbatical to write. I was working, being a mother, in COVID, doing COVID conversations, changing jobs, dating. You aren't supposed to date in COVID, but me and my crazy self was dating and got engaged. Getting married next year. I'm like, what?
So much has happened.
So much has happened. We've changed presidents. I mean, I'm like, all during this, I never took a beat, never took a sabbatical, never took time off. But what I did was the most impactful piece of this project were the interviews. Everything and everyone has a story. Again, everything and everyone has a story. And with those stories, they leave something with me. They're like little treasures. They leave something with me, and they always change me because I intently listen. When everyone else is like, why are you in politics? Why do you want to report? Because I get it, and I want you to get it. I want to filter the wherefore, thereas, all of that stuff, so you can understand and common speak. And it leaves something with me. It leaves a deposit in me. And then each story, if I talk to you and I hear your story, it leaves something with me. And it changes me forever, really. And it makes me go like, wow. And I just love the overcomer. I love the underdog story. I love the ugly duckling turning into a swan. I love stories. And I love to hear what makes people who they are, how they move about. And these stories, these interviews in this book are priceless to me. and they've changed my life. And it's interesting, so many people, not just women, not just black women, I have men sitting on the edge of their seats, black men, white men, men from all races. I have people from all walks of life on the edge of their seats when we talk about the book, what's in the book, because it really resonates with so many people. And people are buying this book. I mean, we're in a second printing. In 2 weeks, we sold 17,000 copies. Right. And, you know, it's really something that's, it makes me say, one, it was long overdue, and I'm thankful that I was the vessel that was able to tell the story. I mean, hey, who other would you get other than me, the longest serving black woman covering the White House? So I can write about this. I got a little say, you know.
I would say you have quite the most interesting perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to, before I jump into a piece in the book that I want to have you read, or I'll read and we can talk about that, where you said, what you were saying is, if not you, then who? I know that the White House press briefings, for instance.
Under what president? That's the question.
Right. But I think one thing that is very apparent, and that you have also made very apparent throughout your career, has been the importance of having our voices in the room, being brave enough, because I want to make sure I throw in that word brave, right? And having the tenacity to step up and ask the questions. Because it's one thing to be able to be in the room, all of us. It's another thing when you have somebody that's going to stand up and ask those questions that need to be asked for our community and for just communities in general, but I specifically want to talk about that. Can we kind of delve into that a little bit and kind of how that's been for you and how that has continued to morph over the years? And again, president by president, of course.
Oh, president by president. So there are five. I was going to say four. There are five. 25 years and 5 presidents for a woman who grew up in a city called Baltimore, Maryland, a place where people who look like me have the word failure built into their very existence. Let's start there. Baltimore was highlighted during the Freddie Gray wrongful death in police custody. Blight, low income, a lot of parts of Baltimore are hurting. And I am a product of Baltimore. I didn't grow up where Freddie Gray was, but he could have been my cousin. He could have been he could have been any one of us in here, for real. And still to this day, there's no accountability for his death. With that said, I think every person. When I go into the press briefing room, no matter what president of the 5, I take every one of you with me. Each and every one of you is not necessarily just black or woman, it's each and every one of you, because all of us feel. All of us are touched by various things that's happening in society. So when I go in understanding that illustrious front row, the illustrious front row, will ask questions. Ukraine, sir. And there's nothing wrong. Ukraine needs questions. They will ask about, the Federal Reserve. We need the information about the Federal Reserve, yes. But when they come to me, when they get to me, the questions about the water not being safe to drink in Jackson, while Flint is still dealing with the issue, is still on the table, right? Right now, the question, just this last press conference, the day after the midterm election, I don't know how many of you saw me, but I got up there. He called on me and I said, Mr. President, I asked 3 questions because everybody else was asking a bunch, so I said, let me ask some. And they were trying to take the mic from me. If you didn't know, the girl was under, I was like, you better, I stayed up. I said, you are not going to take this mic from me. So, and if you notice, the last question I asked, because we are in this crazy moment, this dynamic of ideology versus democracy versus issues. Politics is personal. What impacts you, you take to the polls, or what impacts you makes you decide not to go to the polls. It depends. So either way, in the crazy, in this crazy moment, in this historic moment, we've never seen this before, I asked 3 questions none of my colleagues asked about. We talk about the rollback of Roe v. Wade, and they talk about the Handmaid's Tale. But we are sitting right now in a moment where the Supreme Court is dealing with the issue of affirmative action in college admissions. There's a thought that there will be a rollback. The president says he doesn't believe it, but there's a thought that there will be a rollback. So, Mr. President, what are your plans in case this happens? So he has directed the Justice Department to act accordingly, to make sure things, if there is a change, that they're right on top of it. They're working with state attorney generals throughout the nation, et cetera, et cetera. Then, and trust me, if there is a rollback of affirmative action, it has, on this case, on these 2 cases actually, it has a serious impact. And I'm going to tell you why. I've talked to legal scholars. They say that it can be devastating because it has tentacles. It goes beyond college. It goes into almost every facet of our lives. And it could even roll back Brown v. Board, a landmark decision on education. This is important to us as a people, not just Black, white, Jew, Gentile, Protestant, and Catholic, and other communities. It's not just on Black folks, it's on everyone. All of us are impacted on this. How we sit here today, could be impacted. So as people are talking about, oh, this is the Handmaid's Tale for Roe v. Wade, I said, it may be roots when it comes to the issue of affirmative action. I'm serious. Then the next question, the Griot, the place that I opened up about 2 years ago, the political branch for Byron Allen, the owner of my company, company that I work for, and we've been doing landmark work. We've been doing groundbreaking work. I mean, we're breaking news left and right. We did a study, the Griot study with KFF, formerly the Kaiser Family Foundation, it's now KFF. And the respondents from this poll, they said inflation was the #1 issue, gas, housing, just the economy. You go to the grocery store, your bread prices are high. You know why your prices are high, bread. This war, Russia's war on Ukraine, grains can't get out, We are 1.5 million affordable units shy of housing for people to afford, 1.5 million short. That's from the current Secretary of the Department of HUD. But when they get to me, these are the questions I ask. And then so in the midst of all of this rhetoric, this nasty rhetoric, if you look to our state just above Georgia, if you've been in Georgia and you see those ads, they make you want to scream, And if you look around and hear the candidates and what they're saying, in the midst of this rhetoric, I said, Mr. President, because you cannot be a human being and not see what's happening. So I said, Mr. President, you can't legislate or executive order out empathy or the lack thereof. What's next? Because he had a national address on this issue. So then what's next? And so he was so thankful for that, he even went on social media and posted my question and his answer. I said, okay, Mr. President, there you go. About that, but it's unfortunate that it has to get to that, because the illustrious first row and the second row, but it takes me to get to the meat and potatoes of it. That's what living in Baltimore does to you. You know what is worth worrying about, what is worth discussing, what impacts people. You know what you will take or what you won't take. And it's like, think about this. We have been in COVID. We're still in COVID. I'm still wearing my mask. Yes, I'm still wearing my mask. I got all my shots too. But here's the deal. We are people who believe in coming together. We are not coming together like we used to. And when they made us stay in the house, we came face to face with ourselves. We survived something many people that we know did not survive. And in these moments, you realize what you will take and what you won't take. This is serious. So for every president, I come at it that way. understanding the stakes are high, not just for black people, but for all people, particularly in this moment. So I don't play with this. Life and death is written and spoken in that White House. And when I ask a question, it impacts us all. And I remember that. So for 4 presidents, they understood that. There was one that didn't, who's trying to come back. And you say I was brave. I'm not brave. I understand the stakes are high, and I understand where I sit, the lofty perch that I'm allowed to see, an even loftier perch. It's not about bravery, it's about asking questions. The Fourth Estate, that's what we do. You know, according to our founding fathers, who never imagined it, April Ryan. That's true. Because many of them, yeah, and many of them I'm sure had slaves, so they never imagined that there would be an April Ryan there. So with that said, I am there under the pillar that they wrote, freedom of the press, First Amendment. Not the second, not the third, the first.
You know, we had a moment backstage when I said to you, I really want to touch on this, and you already know where I'm going. What was always referred to the umbrella in which you stand under, selective media. And I wanted to unpack that a bit, and just how I know you have broached this exact question before, and unpacking why must we still look at it as this selective media umbrella?
Right.
When we're looking at, you know, in comparison to what we have, like you were saying, the front row, mainstream media, right?
It's TV, it's mainstream TV, like your CBS's, your NBC's, ABC's, CNN, MSNBC, all of that, and then your newspapers and your wires, like the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, you know, and the wires, Associated Press, Reuters, and then there's us, you know, the Telemundos, the Griots, and what have you, and it shouldn't be that way. It's just awful, and you know, it's just that way. And it's interesting. I just heard the phone ting. I texted Anna Navarro back there, and she was like, "Girl, you here?" I said, "Yes." I just told her the building. So hopefully Anna will come in here, come by here, and just say hey. So yeah, y'all like, She's good people.
She is.
She's very good people, right? And it's unfortunate. Her voice is just. She is so plain in her conversation. And it's unfortunate when we are viewed under that umbrella, minority women, and then they figure out where to place us. And that's the thing I dislike. We are a part of this country as well, who hear the grassroots and speak to the issues of those communities, but yet we're still relegated to certain spots.
I like the way you put that. We are here, Black women are strong, and there's still this reality of figuring out where to place us. How can we best utilize this voice? What's the most impactful yet safe way that we can get this message across?
So as some are figuring out where to place us, one has been placed in the Vice President's office.
Yes.
And then as they're figuring out where to place us, another has been named White House Press Secretary. And then as they're figuring out where to place us, another one is Domestic Policy Advisor, whose mother was considered the mother of the Pell Grant. A lot of folks got through college on the Pell Grant. All right, thank you for raising your hand, sir. A couple people, thank you, yes. All right. So, Susan Rice, her mother, the domestic policy advisor who used to be the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and also national security advisor, her mother is considered the mother of the Pell Grant. You didn't know that. That's why April Ryan is here. So, and then you have a woman who dares to embrace her blackness, who speaks to her religion, her family in law enforcement, and who attended HBCUs, and who calls on Maya Angelou and Still I Rise, and she is sitting on the United States Supreme Court and speaking her opinion. She is so prolific. Every time she speaks, she's making news. So if you wonder where we are, that's where we are. But yet, that's right. And that climb to get to where we are. And I'm going to tell you this. We are negated, we are erased. No matter how high or what pedigree you have, you are still never considered worth the diploma that you've received. Just look at what Ketanji Brown Jackson went through during the confirmation hearings. And then you had Cory Booker, who delivered the foreword in my book, had to reset the table so people could understand who this woman was. In 2022, we're still dealing with that. It's so unfortunate. And that's one of the reasons why I'm marking this moment. It's long overdue. Because if we don't mark this moment, we forget. And we say, oh, well, no, I'm marking this moment as a marker, a historic marker, so we can continue to build. We can continue to build. Because we got a lot of obstacles still to this day. As I said, that affirmative action case that's before the United States Supreme Court. The rollback is happening as we are rising, and it's not a coincidence.
I wanted to. This is actually a perfect time because I want to talk about what I marked down here. Hold on, give me one second.
All right, go on and mark.
I'm just going to read a little something.
Did you enjoy the book?
Yes, I did. And you know what? The thing is that when
you got dog ears. A lot of people either put tabs in. You got dog ears. I like that.
When I look at, April, and just before I go into this, being a Black woman in media, a journalist, and
your rise wasn't easy either.
It wasn't, but you know what? I do not want to age you at all. So please don't take what I'm about to say in
I'm
the wrong
55.
way.
You're not going to age me. I'm thankful to be here. Because a lot of people didn't make it. What's the Marvin Sapp song? Never would have made it. All right, yeah, so I'm 55. And I'm happy.
Yeah, I do want to say, I would be remiss if I didn't sit here on this stage and say what an honor it is to be sitting here and talking with you. And a little bit of nerves that I had coming into this because you are so phenomenal. And you did pave the way for so many young girls like myself, watching you on the TV, seeing you in the White House press briefings, seeing how you handle so many tough and navigate so many tough circumstances and what you've done for us. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. So I think that this is a perfect time to put that out there and say, you are phenomenal. I recognize you. So many other Black journalists, Black women, and just journalists in general do. So thank you.
Thank you. That's sweet.
I was even getting a little nervous even telling you that. Not nervous, but just I do. You really are someone that I have looked up to throughout my journey.
I'm your sister
so
friend.
Thank
you can text me. You can say, hey, like Anna. I'm like, look, where are you? Just text me. Say, I'm over here.
It is. It is a very surreal moment. So I just, thank you.
Well, thank you for standing.
For having
and
me
we
here.
need more of us in this space. And thank you.
On that note, I wanted to go to the part that I had marked down here, and it's a little long, but I'm going to try to abbreviate it. Black women in leadership are easy scapegoats when things do not go well at work because they are almost always viewed by their peers as atypical leaders. Because of bias, Black women in leadership do not fit the norm, which goes back to what we were just talking about there a little bit. Therefore, when things go poorly at work, many default to the mental shortcut to blame a Black woman because they are the atypical colleague at work. That white men always score more favorably even when the organization is struggling, affirms the power of fitting the norm of typical leadership, white and male. That white women and Black men score in between Black women and white men underscores the privilege of gender and race that white women and Black men enjoy respectively. We have to talk about that, and I think it's really in the first line here that you said about how Black women in leadership, the scapegoats. Did you ever, throughout your career, feel as though, I don't even want to call it imposter syndrome, I don't even think that's fair.
Oh, we talk about that in there too.
Yeah.
Valerie Jarrett. But go ahead. We can,
It always kind of, I find myself sometimes rolling into imposter syndrome at moments, and I have to remind myself, no.
You have to show up authentically.
As you.
You have to show up authentically. Because if you don't show up authentically, you can fall and be driven into any avenue. You have to be you and be sure of who you are. And there are moments that you question at those big corporate tables when they don't want to deal with certain issues, like Katrina, and that's an issue right there. Katrina, we were getting word that, there were a lot of black people who were on rooftops, and people were like, do we say that? Because it's like a mass thing, but the Ninth Ward was predominantly black, and that's who was shoved into the convention center and the Superdome, places that are now, we use them at the Essence Festival, and people remember that, but people didn't want to say that at first. But that was the face of Katrina. A lot of people got hurt, but we were considered refugees, less than, etc. at that time. Remember that? We are always left behind, left out. We don't hurt. We don't hurt. Oh, that's okay. We're not vulnerable. That's okay. Walk away from that community. No. There's several stories in here. I think about what happened to Susan Rice. Benghazi was real, but they crafted that to make her look like the scapegoat for it, her and Hillary Clinton. But Susan Rice went out there and said everything else everybody else said, but she was the one. She was the one who had to fall on the sword. Benghazi will always hurt her. She may never be the Secretary of State because they crafted this narrative about Benghazi. And she is hurt by that. She could not be on the Biden ticket as vice president because of that. That negated her, for real. She was lumped in that category, that group that he was picking from. But Benghazi was the reason why, and what some people did to make her, to always mark her. It wasn't just Hillary Clinton that was marked, it was her too. Keisha Lance Bottoms, the former mayor of Atlanta, one of the interviews in the book, she said to me, as mayor of Atlanta now, I have one of the largest economies in the nation. I have not only one of the largest economies in the nation, I have many Fortune 500 companies headquartered here that I have to work with. Largest airport, etc. But then I have men coming to me telling me when I make a statement or make a decision, who told you that? Like she can't think for herself. Exactly.
And that is kind of the reality that we live in. And also when I think about the part that I just read here about black women being scapegoats, but also more importantly as well, and I want to hear from you.
And the Susan Rice goes to scapegoat, yeah.
I want to hear from you also how you navigated what I know I felt myself in the workplace, this feeling of always having to be on and always having to be perfect. Like we cannot make a misstep. And I think that goes beyond just black women. I think minorities in general. I think, when you really peel back that curtain. But in this moment with us here, black women, it's so heavy. Like when I make a mistake, I feel like it is the end of the world.
There's a microscope on you. Yeah. Because you carry the weight of the next person who takes that job. Because how you rise is the determinant if I'm going to bring in a young lady into the office, another one. And that's unfortunate because there's a lot of weight on you. And it's the same with me. I am that person who sits back, I'll sit back and watch the lay of the land. And then I'll assess. I think that's, again, from where I've come from. I might be, hey, I'll jump into stuff, but I also watch. And when I see something unfair, I'll say, okay, I'll sit back. But if you try to pull the rug from under me, you better watch out because I remember. I have receipts. And that's not being underhanded. There was something that happened in the workplace. When I left the boutique organization that I was working for, I had to really start all over again. even though I'm the longest serving black woman, been 5 presidents, I had to start all over again. I kept saying, oh, but the precedent was set with Helen Thomas. I kept saying that. Nope, they wouldn't do that for me. I said, okay. So I played the game. I kept going and I kept going. And then they wanted to deny me to get back into the pool. I said, oh, really? The person who denied me did not look at our work, just thought it was just was sloughing it off. I'm like, did you read it? Oh, no, but you're not coming. I was like, oh, really? I said, I've jumped over every hoop you put in front of me. Now, what are you going to do? Oh, well, I said, I made them look at us. Because I said, if you don't, I said, there's going to be a problem. They did. And we're now where we're supposed to be. But every day, it's a fight. And you have to prove yourself over and over again when other people are given the benefit of the doubt. And it's not fair, but that's the world, and I'm ready for it. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of fighting. But trust me, when I step up and say, I'm getting ready to fight with you, I'm going with you, you don't want me fighting against you because you're going to lose.
I was going to say that sounds just like a black woman to me.
You can say that.
I was going to say that sounds just like a black woman to me.
I am that. I am a black woman. But no, I'm serious. I have learned to take the emotion out of any fight that I'm in. Because that's where we go wrong. If you get in a divorce, take the emotion out of it, put it on, because the judge don't want to hear you, I'm crying because judge don't want to hear that. If you're in the workplace, nobody cares about your tears. You go in there with fact. Take the emotion out of it and put the facts on the table. And if you got the facts and you got receipts, make those receipts rain where they cannot refute it. Because that's one thing. I've been through too much. I've lived when they wanted me out and sent people after me. You will not. You will not. You will not.
I think, are we getting ready for audience questions? Did you put that up for audience questions? Yeah. Okay, perfect. I just want to check the time. Right. What time do we have?
So if you have questions, if you'll queue up, we have a live microphone in the middle there, and in book fair fashion, one question per customer.
One
Let's
question,
be respectful and get in line. And
no comments, questions.
I just wanted to keep a track of the time and say no. Okay,
it's a good time because.
Wonderful.
Right.
Well,
okay,
thank you.
Anybody that would like to ask a question, you could just come to the center here, to the center microphone. And as people are coming up, April, I know that you've been on this very busy, very fabulous and successful book tour.
Yes.
I want to hear from you just some of the words that you've heard from people along your journey that have read your book, that are getting your book and are hearing from you. What are some things that they've told you about your book and just about you?
It resonates. The audio book is still #1. And I'm like, I can't even listen to it because it's like when I was reading it, I started crying. And they were like, go with it. I'm like, no. And it's me. It's my truth. It's the truth of my friends and people who respect me enough just to do an interview with me. And you hear the heart of so many people like Valerie Jarrett. For all intents and purposes, if she and Michelle Obama were not in Barack Obama's life, you would not know a president by the name of Barack Obama. We would not have a Barack Obama as president. And that's the truth. Just so many people, conversations or things that I've seen, the coming together. I have a piece in there about how far apart Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were before they came together. And I'm telling you, there was a Damascus Road moment or something. Something happened, but in there, people felt it. They resonated with it. And there's so many allies who read this book because, one, they want to get to understand so we can have that unity that we're talking about. Dr. King saying, we sit at the table of brotherhood. All of us come together and respectfully respect one another and just have these dialogues. And also now we're at a time, and in this book we talk about, the rise of black women. Shirley Chisholm, the late great Shirley Chisholm, who ran for president in 1972, the first black woman to run for president, said, if you don't have a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Black women perpetually had a folding chair on their back. But now, in 2022, we are building the table, convening the conversation, and welcoming more people to the table. So times have changed, but there's still a lot more work to do. And I'm not going to talk anymore because there are people who are standing here.
Thank you. You talk about being at the table, Kamala Harris is vice president, being placed there, but they have not given her a voice, and I find it infuriating.
You're not alone. And normally, and I told her, and I'm going to say this, before the book came out, I had an opportunity to tell her. We were standing face to face, and I said, Madam Vice President, you're in the book. She said, oh boy. For better, for worse, I said, it's good. I said, I get it. She has a portfolio that's crazy. She's got some of the hardest things. Immigrant with properly, by right. And do you think in these 4 years that you're going to get somebody in 2 seconds to turn it around? No. Voting rights. We're now voting without the full protection of the Voting Rights Act. Voting rights is gone. You got to start it all over again. And basically, Joe Biden said exactly what LBJ said. LBJ told Dr. King, make him do it. There needs to be community involvement and action. People gotta to show their disgust. And we've been lulled into this, oh, I'm gonna get on the Twitter and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna do this. The Twitter, especially now, the Twitter don't mean nothing. So, well,
Well, I just,
Right.
well, you know what I'm saying, because I'm telling you, I'm trying to figure out if I'm gonna stay or if I'm gonna go. A lot of us are trying to figure it out right now, especially since the other person's been reactivated. I don't know if I'm gonna stay. That's a whole nother thing. But politics is personal, and that White House listens and watches. So if you're disgusted, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm telling you what happens.
so I'm an immigrant. But I came off that Norwegian boat, and it's a very good boat to come off. I don't have any issues. This year was the first year I voted. It's a long story, but it was my choice. But you talk about Katrina. We just had a hurricane in Naples. The Naples police evacuated the animals from the zoo before they went to the historical black neighborhood to evacuate. And I just came from Billy Porter's talk, and he was
I love him.
phenomenal in his encouragement to speak the truth and to stand up for something. And if we don't all stand up in these very, very dangerous times and tell the truth, we're
And it's
lost.
important that you're doing that because your voice is being heard on C-SPAN right now.
Oh, hooray!
Yes. And people need to hear these things. So thank you, because we got to get to the next one.
So who wants my autograph now?
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you? Just like the young lady that just left, I was late, and if you covered this, I apologize. I was at the Billy Porter
That's
event.
okay. I'm glad. They're my Anna and Billy are my friends. That's good.
How did it, or if it made you angry when Trump pointed you out, and then you had a lot of the right-wing media saying he made you famous, he gave you notoriety. Oh, I'm a political junkie. I followed you since I could watch
They
television.
made me famous, right? And wait a minute.
Yeah.
So Trump was there for 4 years, and I've been there 25. And they've known my name. I used to be in the news when I was on MSNBC. So, you know,
Yeah.
thank you,
I
Tucker.
wanted to break
Thank
the
you,
TV.
Tucker Carlson. But you know what they did? They didn't make me famous. They made me a target.
Oh.
They made me a target. And I've told Tucker Carlson, he was shocked that I stepped to him in his face. They made me a target. They put a target on my back. I got a Caesar Sayoc bomb. I talk about that in my book. One of those fake bombs from that guy who was sending them to the Obamas and CNN and the Clintons. I got one of those bombs. I had to move my home. People would sit in front of my house. So thank you for not making me famous, but putting a target on my back.
God bless
And then when I have to, why do I have to have security? Because of them. So consider the source.
Thank you.
Consider the source. Fox News is entertainment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So, what is the best advice you would give someone?
The best advice is that someone
Anyone in general.
the best advice that I would give someone, be authentic. Know that you matter. You're deserving. And that's for each and every one of us here. Because sometimes we feel like we're not seen. And if we feel like we're not seen, we go and run in different spaces and places that we shouldn't be. But know that you're enough, you matter. And be authentic.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that my friend? Hi.
You talk like about how where you grew up helped you to get where you are. Do you think that you'd have enough courage to do what you're doing if you hadn't grew up how you did?
That's a good question, Arden. It's a really good question. She was a couple years ago I was here, she came here, and we met at the Miami Book Festival a couple years ago, and we've been following each other ever since. You know, I think we are all a sum of every experience that we have encountered. I come from a working class family. My mother worked for 42 and a half years at a college. She exposed me to a lot. My father owned his own trucking business. When I was a young girl, I lived on a street where one of the guys that I was a neighbor like 4 doors up, he wound up playing for the Buffalo Bills, professional football. Another guy's like 6 or 7 doors around the corner up the street, went to NASA. But then the realness of Baltimore, there were a lot of other people on my street who didn't make it. Some of them went to jail. Some of them sold drugs. I went to Catholic school. My parents wanted to always give me an advantage. I would always wear those little uniforms. I would wear those uniforms. I had the coldest knees in the wintertime on the bus stop. I used to be teased, you know, because everybody else went to the public school and I went to Catholic school. Some of those same people, some of them failed high school. Some of them, I don't know, it depends on who's in your corner, where you are. I mean, I had parents who told me, even with all the dynamics on my street, I was the one that they told to come in the house before the lights went on. Some of you white people don't know this, but in the city, or did y'all have that? No, you didn't. See, that's what I'm saying, you didn't know that. So, but in some of how many of you in the black community, your parents told you come in before the lights came on? Yes. We knew that, yeah. Yeah, you knew that, yes. That was you don't know that. You have to, you knew, oh, you did that? Okay, good. So you lived in the city or the city, that's right. In rural communities, you will probably come in before you see the shadow of the corn stalk. You know, that's probably what happened in the rural communities, I don't know. But, no, but they poured into me. But I also understood how I had a little bit of street smarts. I had a little bit of book knowledge. But I am a sum of everything I've been through. My mother had a heart. She was the most gentlest, kindest person I've ever met in my life. My father was that, look, this is how you gotta be. You know, he was the strong one. My mother was laid back. And my mother, before she died, she said, I don't know where you got your fight from. I said, I'm sorry. She said, no, I love it. Because she would regale me about the civil rights movement. I was born in 1967, right after we got, just months before Dr. King was killed, after we got the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And they used to always tell me about things. So I think who I am is all the experiences from church, Catholic school, my community, my parents, my family. I am the sum of all the parts that I've touched and has touched me. And I think that's who I've become. And I think growing up in Baltimore is part of it. And I wouldn't change it for the world, because if I hadn't grown up in Baltimore, I may not have been where I am today. Thank you, Arden.
Hi, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
And I hope I articulate this correctly. Now, you talk about black women saving the world, and the last few years, everything has been so challenging. We're all mentally exhausted, but we're not listening to black women.
Oh, you're
Like-
not?
No, but like,
Okay. I get it. Okay.
you know, I'm afraid that you said you're tired. We're all tired.
We are all tired.
And I just don't want us to lose the fight. So I just want your thoughts on if we're not listening.
Let me tell you something. You are listening. You don't think you are. You celebrated. If you're here, I know you celebrated for Ketanji Brown Jackson.
In this room, actually, I was here that day.
There you go. You're listening. You're in this room because you're listening. Let me tell you something. You know what? I'm going to answer real fast. I want her to come. She came up. I want to let her get a question in. Come on in. You're listening to black women, and I'm going to tell you why. When you're not getting your voting rights, the face of voting rights is black women. But unfortunately, voting rights hits everybody. You're listening. When Joe Biden's numbers were really in the tank, and when Joe Biden got in trouble during that debate with Kamala Harris when she talked about busing, who's the first person that came to his defense? A black woman by the name of Keisha Lance Bottoms. She supported him the day after that busing issue, and then when his numbers were in the tank, she came to the White House, and she's still there. You don't think you're listening, but you see a lot of the uplift, a lot of the working. Pell Grants, you're not listening to black women, but how many of you had Pell Grants? White and black. You're not listening, but look at it. You got a benefit of a black woman. You may not be listening, but everything that's happening, a black woman has helped you to live, a white woman in America. You may not be listening, but you're feeling the impact of black women.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I know you're listening, but I'm saying for the collective. Yes, yes. Hello.
About 6 years ago or so, I heard Chris Rock say, he said, people are saying race relations are getting better. He said, that's not what's happening. There's just a few white people that are being nicer. And I've never forgotten it. And really, I mean, this might be oversimplifying it, but it really feels like it's a lot of white people that have to change to make it. And I just wonder if you have any advice or insight to how white people can make other white people change. That's where the change, I think, is.
I'm so glad. Thank you for remembering Chris Rock's joke. But sometimes there's truth in the joke, right?
Yeah, no, I feel like it is.
Who's the majority of this nation?
Yeah.
I love a diverse audience. I don't like singing to the choir. I love a diverse audience because each one of you who doesn't look like me will go out in the community, even getting up talking about how they pulled the animals out before they dealt with the black people. You see it. When you see it, what do they say at the airport? You see something, say something. You're talking to me, but this is a safe space. I want you to stay in safe spaces to make your impact. But you gotta remember that it takes each and every one of us. I can talk to black folks all day. Let me tell you something, I don't even have to talk to them. All we gotta do is sit in the room like, because we already know. They laughing because it's true. I don't know you, but I know what you've been through. I don't know, sisters over there with them pretty hats, I don't know you. But I can, because there is a communion and a commonality that is unshakable in the black community. We have told you, we've told you, we've told you, but it takes visuals. It takes George Floyd, And then we started talking, and George Floyd, what happened to the conversations? Everybody wanted, oh my God, it's so awful. Let's change this. What happened? The conversations have got to keep going. And let's go back even further for those who are wise in years, and some of you who may have studied this. 67 years ago, it took 67 years. We've never had this for the centuries we've been here in this nation, because this has been going, lynchings have been going on since slaves were brought to this nation. And it took this year for the Emmett Till anti-lynching law to come into being, 67 years after this 14-year-old boy was lynched, horribly burned, thrown into the river, beaten in Money, Mississippi. It took 67 years after his death. We are slow, real slow. But it takes you guys, when the world saw in black press that beautiful boy and what he looked like in that casket, there was conversation. But it took 67 years for change to happen. And his mother was the one, a black woman, who made the daring decision to put that body, that grotesque trauma, on that page for the world to see. But now we got that, but there's more that needs to happen. And for you to stand there and for you to say that, that's where change starts. We're not the majority, you're the majority. You gotta talk and walk. How do you think voting rights happened? It took white folks to get on that racist named bridge in Selma, Alabama, the Emmett Pettus Bridge, to be beaten, to have the sting of the hose, and to have the bite of the dog, bite of the flesh, for the world to see how grotesque, just for us to vote. It's gonna take you again to keep the conversation going. And I'm gonna say this, I thank each and every one of you for coming on this rainy day. I thank each and every one of you for having an open mind to listen, to make change, because we're all here for each other. And I say this particularly to my allies and other communities. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I just appreciate having great dialogue and good conversation, because change needs to happen. I'm not an angry woman at all. I'm a concerned citizen, a patriot of this United States of America. I love my country, and don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise, because the only way it changes if we see it for what it is and speak truth to the power about it. Thank you.
April Ryan, everyone.